This episode of TFL Talking Trucks is focused on a brand new powertrain in a very special heavy-duty pickup truck.
Very special one, a big bad dually Ram Cummins with the new 8-speed transmission. And this episode takes place at Davis Dam, which is a really pretty important place.
Exactly. You and I recently were there at the event where is it? Laughlin.
Well, yeah, it was across the border
Nevada.
into Arizona.
Yeah, exactly. And you and I have never done Davis Dam grade, but now we have. But this was ultra special because we had basically a chief engineer of the Ram truck lineup. Doug Killian does heavy-duty pickup trucks.
Yep.
He's also responsible for light-duty 1500s. He's also working on electrification for Ram trucks as well.
And we've had him on the podcast recently, too, to talk about cold starts and what you can do in the winter to better take care of your vehicle, of your truck when you get it moving. So he's a friend of the podcast already. And today he's talking through the new Ram Cummins with us as we take it up the hill. I'm the whole time in the back seat filming. But yes. Andre's driving, talking to Doug about the truck as we see in real time how it performs.
Exactly. And this was super special because we're kind of getting a taste of the new Cummins and the new 8-speed automatic transmission from ZF, the Powerline transmission. But we're also learning about the Davis Dam. We're learning about how Ram tests and what they're looking for. I asked Doug a couple questions, some questions that have been rolling around in my head for a very long time, as far as like what's the best way to go down the hill. How do you balance the engine braking versus friction brakes, all that stuff. It's so cool to have Doug for such a long haul interview. I want to call it long haul.
Yeah, I think that's a good name for the segment. And it is a big interview. It's also very interesting, to your point, to get to talk to one of the actual engineers on these trucks about why they use Davis Dam to test these vehicles. Because it's not just Ram that tests trucks at Davis Dam. And it's called Davis Dam, but where you top out at the top of this 11-mile uphill stretch is Union Pass.
Exactly.
Interesting talking to them about why they use that stretch of highway to test out trucks on, because it's not just Ram. That towing test that we do in this video is part of the J2807 SAE tow rating that all these trucks get. When you buy them and it says that your truck is rated to tow this amount, a big part of that is Davis Dam.
Exactly. So when your Ford Ranger says 7,500 pounds tow rating, or your Chevy 1500 says this truck will tow 11,000 pounds, those numbers come as a result at some of their hot weather testing right here at Davis Dam grade.
Yeah, and the truck we're towing with in this podcast is capable of towing 33,000 pounds. It is a beast.
Exactly. Well, let's jump into that interview right now. Guys, I have a very special, another very cool episode of TFL Talking Trucks podcast because, Doug, you're back.
Hey, I'm back. Great to see you again, Andre.
Let's do every week with Doug Killian from Ram Trucks.
Okay, all right. It's like a weekly sitcom.
No. So a couple of weeks ago, you did an interview with us about cold weather and big trucks.
Yep.
And right now, we're here on the border of Nevada and Arizona. This is the first drive of the new Cummins.
Yeah.
It's pretty
exciting.
amazing. Yeah, it's really cool. So on this podcast, I want to drive the route. This is the famous Davis Dam.
Yes.
Because this is the way that all trucks are rated. It's part of the standards.
Correct.
And the test. And also I want to learn about the powertrain, the new powertrain in this truck.
Cool. Yeah. The test it's an SAE standard, SAE J2807. Don't expect you to memorize it.
I actually do, but maybe our listeners haven't memorized it yet.
Okay.
But they will.
They will know. J2807 is, in many respects, Davis Dam is an integral part of that, because the slope that we're about to hit here, 5 or 6% grade, it varies over the course of the climb over the mountain here. We're down by Lake Mead, and we're going to head up into the hills, up into the desert, and it's a strong climb. And 5-6% grade, it doesn't feel like much as you get going, but then it keeps going and it keeps going. And then there's a turn. So you think about the climb up and the drive down, that amount of power we have under your right foot is important, but then we also think about the left foot and the braking coming down, is we have to control this load.
Exactly.
And we'll see that there's the turns, and you have to control the traffic around you too. I shouldn't say control, but you have to react to the traffic that's around you.
And another part of the Davis Dam grade is the temperature, right? Because it's usually, the test requires it to be at least 100 degrees Fahrenheit. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Yeah.
It also requires that we run the air conditioning on full fan.
Okay.
So that might interfere with our sound, but when we're running the test, we run it on full fan, and also it cannot be on recirc. So it's really expected to be the most demand from the
cooling
HVAC system, from the cooling system, and the HVAC as well. You're going to take a left here onto Thomas Edison.
Thank you for directing me. This is my first time, but in particular, just running this grade. We've been doing the iGauntlet, the Eisenhower grade, for 12, 13 years, but this is my first time here. Yep. And also it's a little bit confusing because Davis Dam, it's called Davis Dam grade, but the Davis Dam is actually one of the lower points of this climb. It
is. In fact, it's down at the level of the lake here. So we're going to start out at Davis Dam, will be visible off, but really, in fact, I've kind of wondered why they call it Davis Dam. It should be Union Pass.
Union Pass.
Yes.
Which is also a cool name.
It is. Oh, it is.
That's the highest point of this climb. Yeah.
Correct. So when we get up to Union Pass, it's a gorgeous scenery up here as well. But yeah, everyone calls it Davis Dam.
Okay, well, we'll continue to call it Davis Dam.
Yes, we will. We will. Maybe we make a move for Union Pass. But
all right, so let's kind of talk about the truck that we're driving. I'm driving with you. It's, of course, the new 2025, so this is the first drive event of the entire lineup for the 2025 Ram Heavy Duty. But this is kind of a big boy truck because this is a 3500 dually.
Correct.
Crew cab 4x4, and it's also a pretty nice Laramie Sport.
Yeah. The Laramie itself, not the highest level in terms of where we have, let's call it luxury features, the type of leather, everything else. Limited still holds that top rung of the ladder.
Yeah.
But Laramie is really, I mean, if you look at the interior of this truck, you think about just the materials, even the NVH treatments, you'll see once we get out on the hills, it's a very quiet truck. And we really pay attention to, if you're the driver or passengers and you're hauling something, chances are you're probably hauling a pretty good distance. And that how quiet the truck is and how composed and confident the truck is really something that we're paying a lot of attention to in engineering and development.
Yeah, and I want to ask you about the powertrain specifically because it's new, right?
Correct.
So we do have the updated Cummins engine. We do have a new transmission, a new rear axle ratio. It's all working together now. Am I making a right turn?
You're going to go straight through this light, and all the way out till there's a T, you're going to take a right.
Nice. Yeah, so as we are here at the light, so let's just kind of dive into, first of all, before we go into the diesel, the 6.4 liter Hemi is still around.
It still is.
Yeah,
very
that's the base.
Similar
that's the base
to what
engine.
We've seen. Correct.
Okay.
That's the starting point, and then it's an option up to the diesel.
Okay, and the Hemi has had an 8-speed automatic for a while, for several years.
Correct. That's right.
I remember this because I think one of the first heavy-duty 8-speeds I drove was a Hemi-powered Power Wagon.
Okay.
And it was you could tell a difference because kind of the freedom of the additional gear ratios and a little bit more efficiency that provides.
That's right. So we've taken that 8-speed basic design, but this is actually a different 8-speed on the gas 6.4 as it is on the Cummins 6.7 here.
Okay, this is the one we're driving right now.
That's correct.
Yeah.
That's right, here in the Cummins. So we've taken what we can really see is the benefit of the additional gears. Those ratios are actually down on the lower end of the gear set, if you will. So that's giving us more launchability, more launch power. So at the same time, we did change the rear axle ratio. So now we're just a constant 342 on everything that is with a Cummins. We still have some different ratios on the 6.4.
Should people be worried? I mean, I saw a couple of comments on my previous videos that, people associate those, big numerical values, the low ratios with power and capability. Just tell me, like, why was that change made, and a little bit more about it.
Well, one thing we can do with more gears is we can keep the engine in its prime operating point more often. So when we upshift and downshift, we can stay right around that torque peak. So more gears helps us to not have to sweep through and go to a lower torque point and then have to sweep through the peak and past it. So really the gear spacing is important. And there's kind of maybe a sweet spot, a Goldilocks spot of what's the right number of gears, because if there's more gears and you're shifting too often, well, that can get annoying.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of gear hunting that can be happening. So this particular engine transmission combination really seems to work well with 8, seems to be kind of that Goldilocks spot for not gear hunting, but also operating within the power band of the engine.
And still have the capability, right?
Correct.
So the number, the max towing number on this particular configuration, crew cab 4x4 dually Cummins, is almost 34,000 pounds.
Correct.
That's a big number.
That's right. With the crew cab, so this truck has more options on it, larger cab. We can go even higher on red cabs, but yeah, this is still a very stout number for towing.
I mean, you have to be very careful how the truck is configured when you're listing a number, right?
Absolutely.
Is it two-wheel drive? Is it 4x4? Is it a crew cab? Is it
Correct.
not? All those things are important. And I was reading the spec sheet, and it's a gift and a curse. I remember numbers really, really well.
Okay.
So the first gear was 4.71 to 1 in this new 8-speed automatic, which is one of the lowest first gears, actually.
Yeah.
In the segment.
Yep.
So that's interesting.
Well, let me tell you something we do there, and you're going to want to get in the left lane, and at that far light, you're going to take a left. We'll head to the grade.
Gotcha.
That numerically high ratio is very good, of course, when you have a very heavy load for launching. But if we're not in tow haul mode and the truck is loaded lighter, we're actually going to launch in second gear. So that's going to give us a smoother launch. So yeah, sometimes it kind of makes to the point of more gears isn't always better. And we'll start the truck in second. Right now, as we're operating, it'll start.
Will the driver even notice, or they may not notice when they're starting?
They'll have no idea.
Okay.
We do have an indicator on the clusters. We can show which gear we're operating in.
Yeah.
And it's just a little 2 showing when you're at a stop, and it's just launching in second gear. Other than that, we were really aiming for smooth.
Sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah.
That's Davis Dam over there on the left, correct?
That's correct.
Yeah, there it is. And we're crossing the Colorado River, and we're crossing into Arizona.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
There we go.
Sometimes a year there's a time change that happens here.
So sometimes not.
Yeah, right, exactly. We're right now it's staying the same, but when we're here and the time is changing and you're up there and then you come back here and it's in the same brief run you're going through time zones.
All right, so we also have the camera system in this truck, 360, and I have my blinker on, and we could see alongside. Oh, no, there's bicyclists actually. That's quite interesting, and I can see that.
Yep, there's kind of a path here along the river.
So I just want to make note of this. So is this the beginning of Davis Dam when we're going to turn?
This is the beginning of the Davis Dam run. So between here to Union Pass is what we would call the Davis Dam run.
So I want to call out our elevation, our altitude. According to the truck, this is the off-road pages inside the screen, 444 feet above sea level. So that's, and our coordinates are also listed. And I want to go through a lot of gauges because there's so much going on. It's really cool.
Yep, so we'll watch that climb as we're climbing up to the pass here. It's about 11 miles we'll be driving to get all the way to the top to Union Pass.
Very nice. All right, so let's keep going. So there's only one Cummins option now. So before there were 2. Correct. So you had a standard and a high output. Now in the lineup, there's only one Cummins diesel.
In the pickup lineup, that's correct. On the chassis cab, we do have a different version of the same engine. Its power rating is lower, but that's because we certify it differently. It has a different mission in life in terms of its loads and durability, and so yes, there are 2 when we consider the heavy duty and chassis cab as one family.
Gotcha. But that was always the case, right? The chassis cabs and commercial trucks always had a different setup.
That's right. So we would have almost said, we had 3 before. Now we're saying,
all right,
we have 2.
Gotcha.
But to your point, yes, every pickup that gets the Cummins gets the single 430 horsepower, 1075 foot-pounds of torque.
Yeah, I was kind of not thinking about commercial trucks or chassis cabs just quite right now because we're kind of in the consumer version.
Totally.
Right. So.
Yep.
I'm gonna put my pedal to the metal, and we're gonna try to. Right now it's 77 degrees Fahrenheit ambient, so this is not a official test.
Correct.
It's not an official test.
That's right. We would test at full GCW, and we're testing over
At the high temperatures.
Yes.
And like you said, the air conditioner and all that stuff.
Correct. And in those cases, there are minimum speeds that need to be met for J2807.
And J2807 is actually, there's more things going on there. Actually, Tommy went out to your proving grounds years ago. I don't know if you were there at that time.
Okay.
But we did another video talking about, lane change maneuvers and turning, and, there's a lot going on in that standard, right?
That's right. Yeah, we're only seeing the gradability portion of it here, but certainly dynamic stability, both for sway and for understeer, are points that we're measuring and complying to the 2807 standard.
Gotcha.
Okay, so now we're hitting, I think we're at about a 5% grade here. And
I could feel there's a little bit of, the grade is here.
Yeah.
I can kind of feel it. We're pulling, by the way, 19,000 pounds. So this is really, we're nowhere near the maximum gross combined weight.
Correct.
Right now.
Correct. Yep, we've got another probably 9,000 pounds to go or more.
Or more.
Yeah.
We are pulling a giant tractor, though. This is kind of a realistic test.
Yeah.
You're moving a piece of equipment from here to there.
Correct.
Yeah. I got you. So the grade is here. This is the grade.
We're on it. So now we're on it, and we're going to have another probably 10 miles, and it's just going to continue on. We'll see some parts that do level out just a little bit as we plateau in some local areas, and then it will get steeper up to 6% at some points.
Okay.
And at some points, the grade is on a turn as well, so that adds
another element to it.
Yeah, a little bit different situation. Probably more on the downhill. But one thing we find is that as people are driving up here, sometimes they let off the throttle as they're going into a turn, and if you're running a heavy rig up, if you have to let off, sometimes it takes a little while to get it back.
And I noticed also on the gauges, I'm looking at the digital cluster here in the center. You have a little button here on the gauge, and it will kind of show you a little graph of the temperature as well.
Yes. Yep.
For each parameter.
Correct.
So you can kind of list through it.
Right. You watch your trans temp over time. You can watch your cooling over time. Those are probably the two most interesting ones for this test, of course.
Of course, on the downhill, what I would like to see is the exhaust brake function too.
Yeah, we can see boost pressure.
Yeah, and we can see that and how that works.
That's right. Yeah, we'll see that engine braking horsepower on its own display.
So let's talk about a little deeper on the engine, because it's still 6.7 liters, but the power is different. 430 horsepower now.
Yep.
1,075 pound-feet of torque, but there's a lot going on the inside. Can you go over kind of some of the changes that happened on the inside? Yeah.
Really, to get the power out of the engine, a lot of it is within the airflow. Think of the air coming into and going out of the combustion cycle. So on the intake side, we've gone to an aluminum intake manifold, a bolt-on aluminum intake manifold, where it was cast in iron previously.
Okay.
So we can see, one, we have more tunability in the shape of those ports for the intake air to come in, and also using aluminum, there's a bit more of a heat dissipation that can be benefited there. So that will ultimately turn into power, and especially real-world power as we're running hot under hoods. Starting on the intake side, that's an important point. Then we're also running higher fuel pressure. So higher charge, fuel pressure gets a better atomization of the fuel and a cleaner burn and more power ultimately resulting from that. And then on the exhaust side, we now have, of course, there's the turbo that we're working through, the single turbo on this Cummins engine, and right behind that, so one of the most noticeable changes under hood is that the catalyst, the DOC, is right up against the turbo. So that's going to light off the catalyst faster. It's going to mean better emissions. So this is really a combination where we're getting more power, better emissions, and better fuel economy all together in this latest evolution of the engine.
And you mentioned fuel pressure. you changed the fuel pump as well, right?
Yes.
To allow for the different pressures as well?
Yes. So of course, yeah, the running at high pressures is great for power and emissions. Also durability, that's something we've paid a lot of attention to. Something we can understand is different types of fuel, different types of contaminants, is that we are absolutely confident in this latest iteration of the fuel pump that we've got a solid offering here that is robust to any sorts of contaminants or different types of fuels or anything that can damage a fuel pump.
Yeah, that's important. I mean, I've heard different, low sulfur fuels can affect fuel pumps in different ways.
That's right. And
kind of lubricity of it as well, right?
Yep. So we've got a very stout fuel pump. So those are some important parts of the engine in terms of getting more power out of it. Also the sound. We've now gone to a gear drive on the front end drive of the motor, so driving the camshaft. And that's actually made it quieter. So if we think about the traditional Cummins diesel sound that's coming through, it's a purer sound now, and so some better NVH out of the engine itself.
So Case is helping us with the podcast as always, and he's running some of the cameras. We just drove to Laughlin from Las Vegas.
Okay.
And first of all, like even right now, you could still hear the Cummins, right? It's not loud. I mean, we're talking normally, right?
Normal voice,
but you could hear that signature sound of it.
Yes.
And also, Case and I were walking around the truck while it was idling, and we could also talk around the truck while it was idling. We didn't have to scream over to each other, and it was actually quite calm, quite nice.
Yeah. So we want, when you have a diesel, there's that diesel engine presence. We even hear some people like turbo whistle, and some people hate turbo whistle, and so there's this like right recipe of sound, and our Ram NVH engineers and the Cummins engineers all work very closely. That actually beyond NVH calibration, tuning, it's really one joint partnership of engineers that are working on this powertrain together.
Exactly. I mean, Dodge and Ram and Cummins have been together for almost 4 decades?
It's like 89, yeah.
Yeah, not quite 4 decades, but a long time. Yeah, a very long time as far as pickup trucks.
Yep, that's right.
Yeah, exactly. And also, we won't hear it right now because we'll hear the exhaust brake on the way down. But that's also, I think, kind of a unique character of the Cummins and the Ram, is you can kind of hear that feedback from the exhaust brake as well.
That's right. Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Which is kind of cool. It's almost like a big rig, right? It kind of lets you know.
Yeah.
Kind of lets you know it's there.
That's right. Yeah, you couple that, the trucks in, when we get it to the exhaust brake setting, and then it'll downshift when we're in tow haul, it's going to downshift a little earlier. I mean, it really has, and it's no coincidence, I guess, big rig type of feel, because those trucks, those Class 8s and beyond are, those are the ones that are doing this for a living, as much as a Ram 3500 dually is doing it for a living.
So, first of all, I wanted to comment on this route just a little bit. So it's a completely divided 2-lane highway. So 2 lanes going up, 2 lanes going down. There's a big median between us. So it's like a proper, almost not quite an interstate, but it's a pretty major highway.
It is, right?
Yeah.
Right.
So it's not like it's a 2-lane where you have to, dodge, traffic that's coming towards you, or whatnot.
Right. Well,
it's pretty comfy.
Yeah, decades ago. I mean, there was a time that this was not 4 lanes and divided.
Yes.
And one of the engineers on our team has a funny story of him going up the hill, trying to pass somebody, and then here comes a police officer coming down the hill, and he's kind of stuck. So yeah, we can. We've been testing this grade for a long time, well before SAE or anybody said it's something we need to do. It's really meant, if we're going to put a number on a truck, even before the standard said so. Again, I think that's an important point.
Yeah.
We want to make sure that somebody's going to get in a truck, we're going to put a number on it. They're not going to overheat. They're not going to have problems. They're not going to be unstable. This is really a punishing hill.
Yeah, especially in the middle of summer.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Here we are in March running it. And
right. We're 70 degrees Fahrenheit.
About 70, yeah.
More or less. And now we're hitting this stretch here where we have some bends in the road. And more traffic sometimes, it does make it a little more precarious, especially if it's looking to make a pass, or somebody's slowing down because they're taking in the scenery. Yeah, so it's not just a straight grade either. It's some challenge to it.
It does have challenges, yeah. we run the Eisenhower grade. Of course, that's way
yeah.
higher elevations.
Sure.
So there's a little bit of an oxygen starvation, issue. Not starvation, but like there's quite a bit less density there.
For sure.
But the temperatures are lower also up
Yes.
there because of that elevation mainly.
Yep.
I've seen it about 70 degrees or 71 degrees Fahrenheit up there at 11,000 feet above sea level, and that's probably the hottest day that I've ever seen.
Okay.
Which is still really difficult.
Pretty warm, yeah, especially considering the altitude and the lack of oxygen up there. And we do test Eisenhower as well, of course. I mean, we look at it. What is anybody and everybody going to do and expect from one of these trucks? And of course, running Eisenhower up and down is an important part of our development
I-70,
cycle.
and it's one of the major arteries kind of through that region.
Ski areas right there, and and it's a way to get through the Rockies, a way to get out west. So sometimes it's just passing through.
Yeah. So whenever you want to take your big case tractor, to the ski area,
Yeah,
I mean, you can
that's
do it.
right.
You
can go shovel piles of snow.
Well, you know what? It feels like the grade has just kind of kicked up a little bit.
It has, yeah. We're getting close to the top. So yeah, we're getting probably 6+%.
And also, obviously, let's take a look at some of our temperatures and pressures. I mean, everything is kind of below half on the gauge. There's numerical values everywhere. So if you're a nerd and you want to see a lot of this stuff, look, the transmission is really nice and cool. 165.
Yeah. No, it's not breaking a sweat on a day like with the load with 19,000 pounds on a 70 degree Fahrenheit day.
It's not breaking a sweat.
Breaking a sweat. No. But at least you get a sense for the grade here. Here is Union
is this
Pass.
it?
This is Union Pass. Yep. So we
look at that.
Reached the peak here.
3,571 feet above sea level. Right there was a sign. Let's confirm here. Let's go to off-road pages. Yep, that's about 35 right there.
Yep.
As well.
Yep. And now we're going to have a bit of a downhill run toward Golden City here, and we'll be able to make a U-turn before we get there. But yeah, we'll be going down the pass.
Okay, and then we'll see how the exhaust brake works.
Exactly.
On the way down as well, and how the brakes works. I mean, that's the most important part is not just climbing, but also coming down.
Exactly.
Is that part of the J2807 as well, as far as braking performance?
It's braking distance. So
braking
not as much and I know because looking at something like Eisenhower, where getting the heat into the brakes is we really do have to pay attention for the amount of heat that goes in them. So of course we're using engine braking, we're using downshifting, and in fact, if you were running cruise control, if you're pulling a camper or somebody's using cruise control, we will of course go in that order. We want to use the engine braking as much as possible first, and then we'll downshift to get yet more deceleration, and only in that case to meet a cruise control set, bring in the hydraulic brakes. And of course, on this pass, there's runaway ramps like we would typically see on any other grade.
And of course, before you left, you checked the trailer brakes, you checked all the tire pressures. So the brakes on the trailer will be helping and doing actually a lot of work.
Yes, they will be.
Because, I mean, this dually weighs what, 88,000 pounds plus?
Yeah, mid-80s.
But that's nothing compared to the weight of the trailer, right? Because you're pulling a lot heavier.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we set the gain as well, so I think if you're familiar with our trailer control right here on the dash.
Yeah, the trailer brake controller is right here on the right, by my right knee.
Yep, so we set the gain for what felt about right, but sometimes people have different preferences or even change the gain depending on the environment you're driving in. So
yeah, we'll see. I think it's at 7 right now, 7.0.
Yep.
And I also checked it before we started our podcast. Case and I got in here, and we were looking at some of the settings, and we set it to heavy electric. So there's different, can you talk a little bit more about it, just the different kind of varieties?
We do have a couple of different settings.
Like over
for
here.
light electric over hydraulic, or heavy electric over hydraulic. So thinking where just the variety of trailers that people hook up to these, the brakes do have to be calibrated for the actuator to be calibrated for what's actually receiving the signal. The hydraulics can have some delay to them, so we have a different level of signal that's coming through to get ultimately to the customer that typical, natural response when you do reach for the brake pedal and you get the trailer coupling with the truck's brakes.
Yeah, and it's nice that you have the 4 different categories of trailer brake controller, and then of course the gain within it.
Correct.
So you can kind of increase it or decrease
That's
it.
right.
So,
yep. Get it dialed in, and those will change with, I think if you notice, if you went into the trailer pages and the trailer setup, you can have different types of trailers set up for the same truck. So you might be towing a light boat or a horse trailer or pulling a case tractor, and you can have all of those just change automatically. You just choose the trailer on the towing and trailers page.
Yeah, setup.
Yep. So we see trailer 1 connected right now. We've got it set to heavy electric. And I think we can also see tire pressure there as well. So if the trailers are set up with the trailer tire pressure monitors, those would come through the same way.
Gotcha. There's a couple more things. I think this could be a little bit better, the overall trailer management software, because what I really like, for example, my use case is not a heavy duty use case, but I tow a boat to the lake. Okay. And I kind of want to know how many miles I've gone with that trailer. And I can name it a funny name, you know.
Okay, yeah.
You know, so first of all, name it something funny, not trailer 1, but actually my boat name. But also track my efficiency with that particular trailer and my mileage. I think there is something here where you have
that's back to off-road pages. Yes.
Like it says right here, tow haul mode active and trailer odometer.
Correct. So that's time spent with trailer 1.
Yes.
In this case.
Is this our turn?
This is our turn. Yeah, you're going to want to make your way to the left, and you can do a U-turn. There's enough room to make this thing.
And
swing it around.
It would be nice to have MPG also.
Okay.
You know, actually tracking all of my trips with this particular trailer. Okay. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. No, I hear you. No, that's. I appreciate the feedback. For sure. That's.
And if it had a customizable name, not like trailer 1 or 2. It's actually a little bit more. Maybe I can remember it better, right?
Yeah.
If I can name my boat, I don't know, McBoat Face or something.
Is that what your boat is named?
No. Actually, my wife called it Echo. My wife grew up on the lake, and when she was little, one of their boats, little ski boat, was named Echo. Okay. So our new boat is also named Echo. She's like, oh yeah, Echo. She knows exactly what that means because it's the boat.
Yeah, it's not trailer 1 and then a type of trailer.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's
that type of thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's just a little feedback that I've noticed.
No, I appreciate that. Yeah.
Light check is also very important. Before you leave, you could click this button and it'll blink all the lights for you. Correct. Brake lights, hazards, all that stuff.
Correct. It'll just keep going through that sequence, so you can walk around and one person can do that on their own.
So when we were driving over here, now we just turned around and now we're heading back up the grade, and then we're going to come down 11 miles on the other side. I set my adaptive cruise control system, and I'll do it again. Okay. So let me set it here. And it's actually working as it would, even though I'm towing. Yes. So it doesn't matter if I'm towing or not towing.
That's right.
Right?
That's right.
It'll just keep working.
Right, and it will, of course, pick up the truck that's in front of us, and will maintain distance. You can control the distance on the right pod of the steering wheel. You can set a larger distance. Typically, when we go into that mode and we know we're connected to a trailer, when you go into adaptive cruises, we set that to the longest distance between vehicles, and then it's up to the driver to scale it down from there. But if somebody,
like right now, it just recognized that Camry that kind of came in front of me. It recognized it. It shows me right here on my display.
Correct.
And will that distance kind of vary depending on how heavy I am? Or in towing, it'll just give me like a longer distance in general?
It'll always try to keep up, but you see how you have one bar? If you look down at the cluster and you see the one green bar there, and now you can move that up. So we will typically, or what we do is we set that to the 4 bars, a larger distance.
Right off the bat.
Right off the bat when a trailer's connected. And then you can scale it down from there. Okay. And then it'll stay down there, but we at least want to give more of a cushion right away and let somebody reel it in if they want to. Yeah, well, because you're heavier. I mean, you just tripled or quadrupled the weight of the truck by putting a trailer behind it, and your stopping distance will be greater. It will be, even with the trailer brakes and everything. So, for the vehicle to be able to react, especially in this adaptive cruise case, that, some of it just the power delivery. The engine's not going to be trying to keep up so much that it's going to be double downshifting, and it is going to have a little more hysteresis, if you will, a little more it's going to leave a little more rope, so to speak, to the vehicle in front of you, so that it doesn't end up in a situation where it's going to have to brake too hard or annoyingly downshift too often.
Alrighty, let's talk about some of the other stuff that's different. So mainly the chassis and kind of the cab stayed the same, right? But the electrical architecture actually changed, right?
It did, yeah.
Okay.
We moved to this Atlantis architecture, Atlantis High. Same electrical architecture we have in the light-duty Ram 1500. Same we have in the Jeep Grand Wagoneer, so something within Stellantis that it's a system we're working on that allows us to bring more features in. So with Atlantis High, we now have, say, traffic sign recognition. You can see that. We also have adaptive cruise control standard. We have pedestrian detection. We can bring in the case of a heavy-duty truck, it's more about safety features and something we expect somebody on a long haul or somebody using it for work really cares about safety and in some cases making the driving a little less fatiguing. So Atlantis High allows us to bring those things in like some of our luxury vehicles have, and it does it faster as well. So the communications are faster and we can have more modules on board and really opened ourselves up to even further growth in terms of features.
And I noticed like the window switches changed. Yeah. I also noticed it on the 25 light duties. Mm-hmm. Is that one of the signs that this is the new system?
Yeah, that's one indicator.
Okay.
Yeah, and we're something like
the mirror controls, all that stuff.
Yes, and I think the mirror controls is something that's also noteworthy. Not new for 25, but something that as we brought that in as kind of a running change, a running cycle change.
Okay.
But really something that with the spotter mirror control is built in, and as well telescoping. We don't have the situation we had, say, previously where somebody's got to be out moving the spotter mirror on the passenger side, or you're driving, change your position a little bit, you want to make some adjustments. So a lot of attention, very customer-focused attention went into designing and engineering, controlling that mirror.
So now we're at the very top again. We crested Union Pass, and now I'm going to set it. It says 55 actually. Actually, there are 2 speed limits. We should talk about this.
Yeah, so you can see the 65.
Yeah, and it says trucks 50. And I think we are a truck. We're considered a truck right now.
Yes, I think, within the rules of the Department of Transportation. Yes. And for business purposes, you can imagine campers are coming down here as well. But yes, there are different limits for different classes of vehicles.
So I know now, you can actually kind of hear engine braking. We have an exhaust brake gauge. And can you explain this a little bit more? It's measured in horsepower. Or yes. What is that telling me?
So essentially it's the resistive power that the engine is giving here to, if we think about just the nature of power in itself as its energy and time. So we're trying to pull power out. As much as we're using power to go up, we're trying to pull power out because we have this potential energy of the truck and trailer that needs to be absorbed somewhere. And that's where the engine pressure essentially is acting like a pump.
Okay.
And putting that energy into pressure.
So the gauge is kind of measured in horsepower, and right now like it's pulling out like 223-ish. And the reason why it's coming off and on is because I set it to auto. Right, so it's trying to maintain my speed.
That's right.
Correct? Okay.
That's right. So, and you can see we're kind of hitting a little bit flatter section locally here, and then we're going to go dip down after this next turn. So, right now, in fact, if we could see the boost gauge, it may actually be.
Oh, do you want to switch it?
Us. Yeah. So we can see turbo pressure, very small amount of turbo pressure.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, maybe I can increase my speed just a little bit.
Yep, and we see the turbo.
So, by the way, I haven't touched my brake once. I mean, my brake pedal once.
Okay, that's good.
I'm in cruise control mode, and so, but it still might be using a little bit of hydraulic, or no, brakes.
Probably not, because we didn't see the engine gauge really peaking out. So
there's still more engine braking available.
There's still more engine braking available.
Yeah,
exactly. And
actually, we can monitor our brake gain, right? So we can kind of tell where the brake gain comes on.
Yeah, and we may
that'll be an indication, right?
That's right, and we may be getting a little bit of fluctuation too with the trailer surging a bit, managing the trailer brakes and the truck brakes. working together, is that's not instantaneous. So we may be seeing the truck responding to a little bit of that dynamic.
Can you find the trailer brake controller? Oh, there it is.
Yeah, we should see
It's
that.
down here. Well, it's at 0 right
0%.
now. Yeah, 0% right now.
Yep.
Let me try to slow down and see what happens, if anything.
Yeah, I think it's just going to crank more.
Oh, I could hear it.
engine braking.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And then we just
Oh, now it's a little bit
upshifted.
flat. Yeah.
Yeah, but we're going to see another 6% for the next 8 miles.
So you said you're prioritizing engine braking, right? A little bit more, which kind of makes sense to me because in an emergency, you still want to know that those hydraulic brakes are still with you, those friction
Yes.
brakes are still with
Absolutely.
you. But a lot of people say, there's this the weird argument that says, save your engine, use more brake.
You know, a friend of mine said that when we were driving in California a couple of weeks ago.
Okay.
And I thought, the amount of pressure that an engine can handle, and we're seeing the horsepower numbers.
Yes, that was about 220.
We're really not stressing this engine much. It may sound, and some vehicles may, and this maybe goes back decades of, things our dad or our granddad told us. It might.
Yeah.
It's really not a whole lot of, at least on a current modern vehicle, there's really not a lot of logic to that phrase.
Yeah, and it kind of makes sense to me because I came close to losing brakes on my older truck I used to own about 10 years ago.
All right.
And that was not a good feeling at all. My brake pedal started pulsating, because the rotors were starting to get a little bit warped.
Yeah.
As I was coming down the mountain. This was on the iGauntlet Eisenhower, by the way.
All right.
And I was scared.
Your heart rate's going up.
Yeah.
You're looking
Yeah.
for this runaway truck. Where's the next one?
So you don't want that feeling.
Never.
So use
Never.
a little bit more engine braking. Use the exhaust brake if you have it
Right.
in a diesel.
Right. Right.
Or downshift manually, whatever you got to do.
Correct.
Right.
Exactly.
Just get it done.
Yeah. Think about this one. You come down and there's a stoplight at the end. If you don't have brakes, it's not just you. It's
You're going through the city.
you're going through the city.
Yeah. That's
this
not
is-
comfortable.
Yeah, it's not just leveling out on I-70.
Yeah.
Although, yeah, you can sometimes traffic jam at the bottom of the hill or something. Could be
Yeah. That
bad
can be very
situation,
dangerous. Yeah. So thank you for kind of clarifying that because a lot of some people say, oh, I want to save my transmission, I want to save my engine, I'm going to use all brakes all the time. No, that's probably not the way to look at that, especially when you're hauling heavy loads.
That's right.
Specifically.
That's right.
So once again, it says 6% grade here.
And what's Eisenhower? average
It's
grade?
about 7.
That's
7 is the maximum. It does have a point in the middle of Eisenhower where it kind of goes a little bit leveler, a little bit more level, and then it gets back to 7.
Okay.
So it starts at 7. I think it levels off a tiny bit, and then it goes back to 7.
Got it.
So Eisenhower is about 75 miles away from our headquarters. So it's a very handy place to be.
Yeah.
And also an amazing place to test.
Oh yeah. But we pay attention to your, the number of brake applies. I mean, that is a useful metric for us in engineering.
Well, I appreciate it. I really
seriously,
appreciate that.
That's other than that, it's been a bit subjective, and that helps.
Yeah,
and it's easy to it's something you don't need a whole lot of sophisticated instrumentation. So that's also kind of nice.
Yeah, because you can overkill it with data, right? Sometimes, and on video, for video purposes, it's sometimes difficult to communicate so much data. I mean, I think you and I both love looking at spreadsheets, probably.
Yeah.
I used to be a software engineer.
Oh, did you?
So,
Okay.
so I think we love looking at that, but doing a video of a spreadsheet, people probably don't want to watch that.
I agree. Even as somebody who loves looking at data.
Yeah. So sometimes you can have data overload,
Totally. Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
But what's getting difficult to measure is, for example, I didn't touch the brake once. So was it a good performance or a bad performance? You have to go a little bit deeper on some of these newer trucks because you need to monitor, for example, like transmission temp, maybe exhaust brake actuation. It's getting a little bit more challenging to measure this stuff.
Right. Well, I guess and not everybody uses cruise control. In fact, it's probably not highly advised, especially in traffic. But yeah, getting back on the accelerator and then having to let off again, it's like there's an amount of It would be nice if it was just kind of steady, but of course it needs to be responding to every type of grade.
And also for electric vehicles now, I mean, we're entering, there's several electric pickup trucks and more coming, right? It's now getting to be how much energy can I put back, right. when I'm descending.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah. What's that battery percentage looking like?
Yeah, so there's a whole different metric now you can look at as well, which is also kind of fun. I mean, because you're bringing energy back from, descending a mountain.
Right. So, and that'll change too, depending on how much is in the battery. If you have a high state of charge battery when you start heading down, well, you're not going to get nearly as much back as if the battery's almost empty. You can probably see, I don't know, a few percent.
Yeah, so that's important too. Thankfully, we do have to drive about 75 miles to get to our test.
Oh yeah.
So we're never starting it like completely maxed out, because if your battery is full, you cannot force more energy into it, right?
Right. In fact, then it relies more on the hydraulic brakes. So there's not as much, ways to scrub off that energy.
I used to jump out at the very end of Eisenhower downhill with a temperature gauge, a laser gun.
Yeah.
And trying to measure the, there's also a variable of, human error sometimes there, you know, how quickly did you do it? Where did you point the gun? How did you measure it? That type of stuff.
You could probably use your nose more than anything too.
You don't want to smell brakes.
Right.
That's not a happy.
Yeah, you don't need to send a laser gun at it if you're smelling brakes.
Well, thank you very much for spending the time with us again.
Oh, yeah, of course.
I really love it. I think the biggest measure of a capability of a truck is I was able to talk with you while driving, and I was relatively relaxed. So I think that's the ultimate measure, right?
Yeah.
I wasn't sweating or white knuckling. We weren't, overheating. There was smoke billowing. None of that happened. So.
Right.
That's the measure.
That would be really bad if there was smoke billowing. And I will say, as we do this, it's not about just what the truck can do in terms of numbers, but like just to your point, it's how it does it. How gracefully does it do it? How quietly does it do it? Does it break a sweat? And that's really what we're paying attention to when we come out here. We can engineer these systems in a lab and through simulations and everything else, but what does it mean to do it with like a high level of competence and comfort? That's what's important to us, especially at Ram, where we expect people are doing work with these trucks.
By the way, I could just tell the air pressure in my ears.
I'm feeling it too.
Yeah, I could feel the air pressure changing, because we're actually moving through 3,000 feet of difference, right? That's not a joke either. I mean, that's more than half a mile.
What, 440 feet?
Yeah. So that is cool. Well, I really appreciate it. I don't know when our next podcast together will be, but
next week we're I guess I got to change my schedule.
Well, we're kidding about it, but
no, you're good. I enjoy talking with you guys. I mean, truck people enjoy talking with truck people. So,
exactly, and also you're always welcome, right? As soon as something else comes up, a new vehicle or another topic, we can talk again.
Yeah, and appreciate your feedback. From all angles, it's really good. Getting more voices of customers is important. Seeing what people do with our trucks, seeing what they want to do with the trucks. Stuff we haven't thought of yet. That's really important.
Yeah, I can see that light coming up.
Yeah,
I need to be able to stop.
Oh, you do?
Yeah.
Oh, that's critical.
Yeah. All right, appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep, sure thing.
Okay, well, I guess maybe I didn't grill Doug enough.
Yeah, I know.
What do you think?
One other thing that you wanted to mention about what the tow haul mode not staying enabled when you get out of the vehicle and key cycle it.
Yeah.
It would be an interesting thing to know why they do that. It's not a huge deal, but it can be annoying if you're having to get in and out of the truck often to have to switch on tow haul every time you do.
Well, and you and I published another video, right, where we actually, without Doug, just kind of we're by ourselves. You and I are in the cab driving with pulling 19,000 pounds.
Yeah.
And we did talk about this a little bit in our other video, and we got some comments where people were making a little bit fun of us, saying that
we're whining.
We're incapable of pushing a button on the dash.
Yeah. And you can push a button. It's not that hard, obviously, but it's just another thing that you got to remember to do and that you have to do every time, when it would be just as easy for the truck to see that it's still hooked up to a trailer and just keep that mode on as other trucks do.
Well, and I think we can be pretty picky on many levels because, that truck was priced at what, $88,000 for that dually?
It's not a cheap vehicle, so I would expect it to annoy me as little as possible.
Exactly.
And when we were there at that event, we were in the situation that we were getting in and out of these trucks
very, very frequently
going from one truck to another, and every single time, over and over again, having to press that button. If you're getting in a truck and you are pulling all day and you don't shut it down until the end of the day when you park it and you get it in it the next morning, and that's the only time you have to kick on tow haul mode again, not a huge deal. Or if you're towing very occasionally, but if you have to make frequent stops and you're having to kick that mode on every single time, it can just be a bit of an annoyance.
Yeah, it's an annoyance. And by the way, we have many other Cummins videos. So some of them are already published. For example, Roman and I took a Ram heavy duty Rebel with a Cummins and an 8-speed to Moab, and we actually compared it to a Duramax Silverado. So that video is out there. We took it on Fins and Things Trail. So that's out there. We have published a drag race, including the big three.
Exactly. Not
Power
only
Stroke,
the Ram.
Yes, Power Stroke and the Duramax.
Exactly.
And the Cummins.
Yeah, full quarter mile.
Exactly. So that's a lot of torque in one place.
It is. It's also a lot of driving now that you've done in the new Ram, because you, at the end of that event in Nevada and in Arizona, drove a brand new Ram HD Cummins Rebel all the way back here to Colorado. So you spent quite a bit of time in it.
Yeah, and there's a video about that as well. So that was the big road trip, and it was kind of part of our MPG comparison as well against the Duramax. And I got to see an animal sanctuary in Utah. A lot of things already has happened, and so if you want to learn about the Cummins, the new one, and how it compares, because it's now the high output in both 2500s and 3500s is the same engine.
Yeah.
So if you want to learn all about it, check out alltfl.com, because we have all of our channels and all of our news items all in one place right there.
Yeah, we were lucky to get to hit the ground running and do a lot of testing with the new Ram HD. So there's a lot out there that you can check out if you're interested in the truck. I'm
even bringing Mr. Truck himself for an eye gauntlet with the new Cummins. So that's how deep we roll on this one.
Yeah, we get to see Mr. Truck back on the Ike.
Exactly. All right, we really appreciate you staying with us, and we'll see you, and we'll talk to you on the next episode.